Zig coming in on the top 10 on the show with Ann Richmond Boston. Ann is a singer-songwriter, multimedia artist, and graphic designer. Ann's musical career really took off when she started singing with the Swimming Pool Q's, the Atlanta, Georgia-based jangle new wave pop band. The Swimming Pool Q's would tour with Lou Reed and share stages with bands like Devo. Ann also had a solo career, releasing one record, The Big House of Time. Not too long after the release of The Big House of Time, Ann recorded a follow-up album, I Should Be Happy, that never got released. I Should Be Happy sat shelved for over 30 years. Unbeknownst to Ann why, the record stayed where it was and was long gone and forgotten until recently. Ann got all the masters to the original recordings and added some new tracks to it, learning how to mix and remaster and approach this all on her own. Of course, with help with friends during the process of this, but the initial endeavor started as a solo gig here. And the record is available on all the streaming platforms, and she's selling a vinyl and CD on her website, and it's a fabulous record. Billy Conway from Morphine partook in it and recorded some drums on this record. Also, Terry Adams from NRBQ records a beautiful part for the song Who Cares, and it's a wonderful piano arrangement, definitely a highlight of this record. Anyway, so Ann and I get into this conversation. We talk about the through line of graphic design and music, and I found that very impactful. We also talk about what it was like for someone to dive into an unknown waters, like learning how to mix and master and do all this stuff on a different end when you come from the performance part and trying to go into the mixing bay. It's a different headset you have to get into, but it's doable. And was a complete delight to chat with, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you guys. But before we do that, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Ann and sharing their insights with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Ann Richmond Boston. But anyway, very good. So this record's fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it's got it's the story behind it's incredible too. But before we get to this new record, I kind of wanted to trace your musical journey a bit.
Okay.
So you started with violin and ballet. Can you tell me about how music became your mode of expression?
Well, I mean, it actually was before that. I started singing in church choir. I think was really the first, musical experience I had, and that was really fun. I loved that because I love vocal harmony. But I was really young. Elementary school, elementary school, and then I guess we would have that was back in the day when the elementary schools had a music program. I mean now I don't even think they all have that. So then I would we would have musical things that happened at school, but then that's when I started playing violin, was in elementary school, and I really just loved music from the get-go, but I was okay at it. I had a pretty good ear, and ended up being chosen to be in a couple special orchestras that we played in these really cool old theaters, and this was in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where I'm from, and so that was really inspiring. And then all along, I think I took ballet all through elementary school, and the music's really involved in that too. We performed the Nutcracker and things like that. But then we moved from Louisville in '67 and moved down to Winter Haven, Florida, and it was just we didn't go to church. They had no music or ballet at the school, and so that was sort of just the end of everything there. But I definitely listened to music a lot then. I think that was the year Sgt. Pepper's came out. And, I was I started getting into, listening to records. I had older siblings, so they liked music, which is important, because you would just hear it. My sisters really liked classical music, but they also liked soul music. So, I got a lot of input. And then my brother loved Bob Dylan. So, it was great exposure. And, so then we moved to Atlanta, and that's when I kind of got, into the school chorus and started going to see bands and stuff like that. So that's when I thought, that looks like that would be fun. And, I performed in a senior, like a variety show, my senior in high school, and that was really fun.
Yeah. Was it so? Well, you guys were moving around a lot. Was it family's work or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it was really, we just moved that, we moved from Louisville. Well, I think they moved around a bunch before I was born. I'm one of 5 siblings. So we moved to Florida and then moved to Atlanta. And then I've stayed in Georgia ever since. So,
Okay. Okay. That's
it's
good.
my father's work.
Okay. And what did your dad do?
He was a mechanical engineer.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Was it? Well, I mean, like that's as going through high school at any age or any elementary or school in general to have to like reestablish, every time it's
Yeah.
challenging. So
I think that move to Florida was the most challenging because it was such a different world from where I came. And, and I didn't have all those outlets. I didn't have the artistic outlets and all that kind of stuff, but it only lasted a year. So that was good.
But still, it's just like a whole year of for a kid at that age, that's a long time.
It is, and it was really bad on my youngest sister. She had a hard time, and it was not a good year. Florida.
My younger sister lives in Florida now, and it's a wild place from what I understand. As far as just driving, even it's pretty crazy.
And what part does she live in?
I can't remember the name of this city, but it's by Tampa. So,
Oh yes,
okay.
on the Gulf Coast. Yeah.
Okay. So, so you start seeing bands? What were some of the first bands you like went out? What were some of the first shows you saw that were you're like, oh, I think I want to do that?
Well, okay, so that goes back a little ways. But when we were still in Louisville, I think I forget what year it was, but I was a huge Monkees fan, and so I got tickets to go to the Monkees, and we were on the first row, and I just thought this is really great. It was. I went with my best friend at the time, and we were just total fangirls. So that was the very first band I ever saw. And then in Atlanta, they used to have this thing called the Teen Fair, and they would have bands play there, and they do competition, band trying to win some prize. And so I saw a lot of local just bands like that. And there was this particular band later on named Thermos Greenwood that I really loved. And they were all, it played all original music, but they were great musicians and their songs were really clever. They were really called Thermos Greenwood and the Colored People, but they were colored because they were blue, red, green, silver, things like that, and white. Had a white thing, but they were really, really, so they were very entertaining and they wore crazy outfits. It was kind of like a Beefheart thing on a Southern level, and it was, I really liked them. So I started, getting to know them and actually got to sing on one of their albums. That, in the studio, they brought in a bunch of people to sing the chorus on one of their songs. And I think it was just like, this is really fun. I really like this.
So that was your first studio experience?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's so cool to go in there and be like, we're in on it,
I know. And then to hear it back and just like, wow, this is magic. It was really exciting.
That's awesome. Okay. So, bouncing back to, you start seeing bands and you do this high school talent or senior year talent show or variety show. Like, cause I remember doing one of those in middle school and that kind of did it for me. I was like, oh, I want to do this somehow,
Yeah, it was really fun.
You get this kind of like, oh, I have a thing that I, for years I was just, I didn't have a thing, but now I have a thing,
Yeah.
So I guess what were the next steps forward for you to kind of take it to other outlets? Like when did you start playing in bands? Was it?
Well, I mean, there was with a couple of the people that were in Thermos Greenwood we formed a band together with these. There was a band from Atlanta called the Hampton Grease Band who were really wild and crazy and wonderful players and stuff. So somehow some members of Thermos and this other band members got together and I sang with them. And so that was just fantastic. And then, because I don't play an instrument really. So I was just, I was just a vocalist, but they were all really good singers, so the harmonies were so much fun. I think had 4-part harmonies in the band. And that was, we didn't really, I think we played a couple parties maybe. But then the Swimming Pool Cues, which is a band that I've been sort of a member of off and on for 48 years, that we started in 78. And that came about from a mutual friend of ours who two members in the band were mutual friends with this guy, Glenn Phillips, who was a guitar player from Atlanta. And he put them together. And then I knew him also. So he was sort of the pulling us all together to start a band. And so that started in 78. And that's really the only band I've ever been in, since then. So except for now.
Well, yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Like, yeah, 48 years. It's been crazy, but it's been, fun. We're like family now.
That, well, like when you get someone that can get behind the message of doing this expression, and like you guys can commit to it and like go through the ups and downs of everyone's life, because it's hard to keep any like band.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. And like, and or even take breaks and come back, and just just to see through it and be like, we're all in it for this is like a huge accomplishment.
And it's so much more. It's so much now because we were signed to a label and everything and toured all around, but that was kind of a negative experience overall. I mean, it was great, but it was kind of left a bad taste in your mouth. But
a bad taste in the sense of like the hustle of trying to get to all these gigs and do it, or like the music business side of it, or okay.
Yeah, the music business side of it, because we were really, just starry-eyed and naive and going into it, and I think that we didn't really have enough confidence or something to really make our own, to put demands at all. We were just like, I'll do anything you say, that kind of thing, which I don't think is a good way to approach anything. So, but it did give us some really, really wonderful experiences.
So and that happened fairly quickly, right?
We started in 78, and I can't remember if we were signed in 84 or what, but Jeff, the guy that started the Cues, he was our manager. I mean, he's the one that deal, which was pretty unusual back then. You usually had to have a manager and have them knocking on the door constantly, but he was really into it and convinced that he was going to get us a deal, and he did.
That's impressive. It's so hard. It's hard to manage all those different hats.
Yeah.
So, because I read that you guys you had a lot of really good support acts. Like you were touring with Devo and like Lou
Well, we
Reed.
didn't tour with them, but we played with them. We did tour with Lou Reed.
Yeah.
We toured with all over the country and up into Canada. And the saddest story of all that, which I think was one of the things that really left me with a bad taste in my mouth about record companies, is that on our final date of that tour, it was in Atlanta, our home base. So it was so exciting. My parents were there. Everybody's parents were there. And on the last song, we actually did a couple songs with Lou. It was such a blast. And then after that was all over, we all went out to this hotel, I guess, where they were staying, and sat around a table, and we're just talking about how great it had been. And he said, well, what would you guys think about coming to Europe with me? And we were like, what? Because we'd never been to Europe, and we were like, yes. And then A&M wouldn't pay for us to go. It was just like, why? That would be such a great thing. It would really be, because I think it would have really made a difference, for us, but they just didn't want to do it. I guess at that point they had decided that we were no longer worth their time or something.
Wow, that sucks. Yeah, that would definitely. Oh man, like to be like Lou, because Lou's kind of a tough character, So like,
well, he was great then. He was, he was sober, and he was he was so gracious to us, and we just had the best time with him and his band and his crew. Everything was really great.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I mean, you hear, I don't know, like people who are doing interviews and stuff like that. You catch, I'd imagine a character like Lou on a bad day, you're gonna get it rough. But like, I'm happy to hear that he was awesome.
Yeah, he was.
And to be like right on the credit, because like there's, I don't know, like the whole like going overseas puts like a different like perspective. And I think I've read, and it seems like audiences over there are more open to stuff. I mean, like Jimi Hendrix being the biggest example, and like then it's so like that is I'm sorry that panned out like that. That's
Yeah, it was a real I think it turned the corner for us where we just kind of were like, well,
yeah.
that's not good, but
What
you know.
the highlight on the cool parts of that though? Like, tell me about playing with Lou Reed. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, first of all, we played in the coolest places all over the country, really nice mid-sized theaters, old theaters like in Detroit and at Atlanta we played the Fox, and we went all the way out the West Coast and played some great places out there. It was just so much fun. But we were like, I think we were traveling in a van and we had two people working with us, and I can't remember whether they rode in a truck with a U-Haul or what. But Lou, of course, had a big bus and trucks and all that kind of stuff. But well, it wasn't that big. I mean, it wasn't like a big showy tour. It was just two bands playing, But Robert Quine was playing guitar, and he's just the greatest. And he was a great character to get to know a little bit. But yeah, the thing that was really positive was that every place we played, people were completely, enthusiastic about our set, which is, you just think, well, nobody's going to show up for our set, but they did. So that was really nice. And then he was always, he and our guitar player had a lot of conversations about how to play things. And, they were just it was really nice.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Like, because usually you get opener syndrome when they're like, okay,
right,
are you
right.
done?
Yeah, I'm going in after they're off. But
yeah.
But it wasn't really like that. It was really nice.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And like, I guess like kind of going through like the music business at that time, with you guys being a big first with a lot of stuff, but being around Lou, did you pick up any like lessons or like ways that like maybe we should be handling it watching him?
Not really.
Not
I
really.
mean,
Okay.
he was already so much of an icon that there was nothing really to learn from him, I don't think, I think we were just kind of, like I felt like such a, I knew who Lou Reed was, and I'd heard some Velvet Underground stuff, but I wasn't like a huge fan like Jeff was. Jeff knew everything about him, so I'm sure it was a totally different experience for him. But to me, it was really just, it was, there was no lesson to learn directly from him, but I mean, it was a very, it was like the first time we'd ever been on a professional tour, where things are run on time and everybody's doing their job. And that was like eye-opening. So that was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But I mean, so kind of leading back, stepping a couple paces backwards, when you started playing with the swimming pool cues, like as far as like writing your own music and like what did that look like for the group? Was it kind of like everyone contributing, or was it no? Okay.
Jeff wrote all the lyrics. Well, I think he had some collaborators early on before the band even started, like people that he knew down in Florida. He lived in Florida actually, and in Lakeland, Florida. But he, wrote with a couple of people, but then he started writing all the songs. And then he and Bob would collaborate musically. So they pretty much brought the songs to the band. And that's the way it's continued to now.
Okay. So and then like does everyone contribute their own part to it, or is it just kind of like, here's what I think you should do? And like,
sometimes there may be, like, for instance, Jeff plays kind of rhythm guitar and Bob plays lead guitar, and Bob will come up with really, great melodies and things like that. But I think sometimes they come up with bass parts and ask the bass player to play that. But I think, it's been so long since I've been in the room when they've come up with a really new song. I think the drummer and the bass player just kind of contribute their parts to it. And then we all just sort of see what works and what doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And like, it's a way for everyone to have their voice involved with like an already established thing. So I feel like a lot of times if you don't have like a thing we're working on. Like, here's the song, you're all just kind of, we all just, I should say, I in my group would all just like be like, all right, how was yesterday? You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of like, unless there's someone bringing something to the format and like, you twiddling thumbs. But I guess what I'm trying to like, I think like going back to your early choir experiences would really lend to writing rooms and sessions like that where you're putting your voice into it.
I mean, I definitely am responsible, I would say, for coming up with a lot of the vocal harmony parts, but as far as writing anything, that wasn't really. I mean, sometimes there would be situations where he would bring the lyrics. I mean, half the time I don't even know what I'm singing about because I can't understand. He's very literate and, has a lot of things that are, symbolic or metaphorical or whatever. And so a lot of times I'll say, well, what is this song about? And then I can kind of bring my thing to it. But definitely I come up with a lot of the harmony parts. And if there aren't, like if he has words or phrases that don't seem to really fit with what's going on, then we'll talk about that and I can maybe come up with something for that. But it's mostly me just singing parts that he has in his mind. And a lot of times he does he'll come up with a demo or, and he'll have a, rough track on there of him singing it.
Okay. So
one of our biggest problems is coming up with the key for things because I don't really know what key I can sing in. Yeah. And, it could be too high or too low and we'll try to figure out, well, where can I sing it? And then, and after 48 years, you'd think we'd have that figured out. We don't.
But you know what? As through time, everyone's voice is changing. Like you have to recenter yourself, and like it's a challenge. Like and like, especially like as for a guitar player, you find like a thing that sounds cool in one spot of the neck, and it could be what makes this stick is like the open strings, because like. The swimming pool cues have a very specific kind of like strat, like kind of trebly, whimsical, like guitar tone. I don't know how to describe it, but so I can see where certain things like, well, it's in this key. How can I
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'd imagine that would be some of the challenges with that.
Yeah, that's Jeff who plays mostly the jingly, trebly stuff, and then Bob is the lead guitar player, and he plays a Les Paul and sometimes a custom Strat that he had made. But yeah, and so Jeff will have all these parts worked out, and he's not quite the master of the guitar like Bob is, but so he tunes each of his guitars in a tuning that's appropriate for the song.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times, he'll have the song set up, and then I can't sing it, so then he has to retune the guitar and that kind of thing. But we work it out.
Got it. All right. Well, that makes it even more complicated. Because, like, I don't know, my band, we play a bunch of open tuned guitars and stuff as well. And, like, if you start trying to transpose that can be a little murky because It's all about the openness. Like,
right.
So, another thing I wanted to ask, when did, like, graphic design, like, become one of your modes of expression? Was that like through all this a career you're working on, or?
I would say, well, I mean, as a career, it started. Well, I always was really interested in art, and I didn't really know what design was when I was, younger. But I was always really into visual art, and did that from the get-go. I had some really great experiences in elementary school with a couple of teachers who were very creative. And so then, as I got older, I think I started thinking I worked at a yogurt shop and they needed some flyers done, or I worked at a pizza place and they needed some flyers. So I would just hand illustrate them and use press type, which is the stuff, you used to put down you'd have to rub each letter and spell things out and doing that. And then, and in the 80s, when the cues started, when the cues were working, we were traveling a lot. So I had a friend who worked at an advertising agency in Atlanta, and I asked him if he had any part-time jobs because, I thought that would be something I could maybe would be interested in. And he got me a job there, and it was in what they called the the dark room part of the advertising agency where you would do these photostats of, they'd bring in something and you'd have to shoot a photostat of it so that it could be reproduced. And so I learned all these great skills. But then this guy who was a designer there, he was this like a fantastic award-winning designer I think he was from up north somewhere originally, but he was living in Atlanta. He just really, he was, I guess, liked the way I approached shooting stuff for him and making sure it was, I was very detail oriented and all that. So he took me on as his personal assistant. And so basically I didn't go to school. I basically got he was my mentor. So it was like on the job learning all of that. So, and that was back in the days before computers, so everything you had to do by hand, like all these little rules and cutting out, things for reproduction. It was a great education.
Well, I mean, it's like learn from the master. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And then later on, after I worked for him for probably about 10 years. And, off and on because I was on the road. And he took me out to lunch one day and he goes, well, and he's the only person I've ever let call me Annie. But he says, well, Annie, what do you think you're going to do with yourself? What is this music thing going to pan out? What do you think you're going to do? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, I think you should be a designer. I think you could be a designer. And I just thought, coming from him, it was like, it gave me some sort of confidence to feel like, okay, maybe I can do that, And so after about 10 years of working with him, this woman that I had met there, Tamala, and I became best friends and still are. And we both left and started our own little design company and taught ourselves the computer. So that was insane. That was like 92, I think. It was crazy. But that's kind of how it started. It wasn't like, I went to school for it or anything like that. I did want to go to art school, but my father couldn't afford to send me to the one I wanted to go to. So I just said, I'm going to go make a life and get out there and do what I can,
Well, and you did. I mean, touring in a band, opening for Lou Reed, and like learning from the masters on design, making that's incredible. And like, I definitely think there's something more to like the on the job, the like, I don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good academic approaches, but there's like the actual approach. And I think I see it because I studied multimedia in high school as like at a career center, and like mostly I use it for making flyers. That's all that's all I've ever done with it. And like but I'm glad I did it, and it was a really fun process and like a really cool class, and I met some friends I'm still friends with from it. But I gotta imagine, like, so when you started learning the computer aspect of it, were you using like Photoshop and Adobe stuff, or like what? Yeah, okay.
I got our first Mac computer, and that was back when the computer had 5 megabytes of RAM. And you couldn't have programs open at the same time because they were using all that. It was crazy, and we didn't really know anything about it, but I just love, diving head first into things like that because, what we did was we sent out things that we had started this business. It was called Print That Matters, and we were only going to do stuff for nonprofits, and so we sent out this thing, and then we got a call and there was this science center in Atlanta, and they called and they said, our designer is something, I don't know what had happened to him, but they said, we need a brochure done. And I said, okay. We did not know what we were doing, but we figured it out, and it worked out well.
Well, I mean, I think that's the only way you do figure stuff out is diving in head first.
Exactly.
Did any like skill set from like looking at, I mean, just so when you're diving into a design and when you have to serve like what in this case a brochure or whatever is brought to you, do you notice any through line skill wise that applies musically or musically applies to design?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, the thing that the guy, my mentor Don Trousdale, I don't know if I said his name, taught us was that concept was much more important than aesthetic. And, he said, if you have a strong concept, you can do the simplest thing and it's effective instead of trying to, he said, you don't have to decorate a cake, it's just about coming up with a concept that you think people can relate to. And I would say that in some ways music is that way, definitely, but I don't know that I've applied it that way, but that's really the only thing I can think of.
I think that's super wise. I think that really makes sense. It does, because it's some of the, I'm trying to think visually, when you look at some album covers, they can be like Pink Floyd. You know what I mean? It's just the spectrum, the light thing, and like what's the concept of that, or another one, I guess Pink Floyd.
Well, the White Album. I mean, that was totally, that was, who knows what the concept was, but I mean, it was so shocking and so interesting and different that it got people's attention,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like that.
But yeah, so, and I guess that in my mind, I'm thinking about, okay, how do you concept a brochure? Like,
oh, you do, you go, well, here are the things you do. You ask, who's the audience for this? What are you trying to accomplish? It's like, how do you want people to respond? Is this something that they need to react to, or is this just some informational thing? I mean, there's just a million questions to ask yourself and then to ask them, because half the time people just go, I just need a flyer, and they're not thinking, well, what is it supposed to do? I mean, what concept here? Why do you think you need that, first of all? And I've had several full-time graphic design jobs, and that was always my thing. I'd have these meetings with whoever I was going to be doing the design for, and I would just barrage them with questions, and it always helped, and it made them think. It makes them, what am I trying to accomplish here, and do I really even need to do this, or is there another way I can do it? So it was really cool. I mean, I loved those jobs.
Well, that's fun in that sense, to dive into a philosophical account of why we're trying to like push this brochure, especially if you're working with like nonprofits. Like, I feel like I don't know. I mean, since there's been multiple jobs you mentioned here, but with the nonprofit stuff you guys were doing, like, I'd imagine they would come a little more prepared with like a mission statement type thing, and like it might be a little easier to draft that why we're doing this quicker than not. But when you applied it to the band, were you guys bringing up the same type of questions?
Sometimes, like, especially talking about dynamics, it's like, well, what is this song supposed to be? How are we trying to have people respond to this? Is this something we want people to, sit back and listen to, or do we want them to get up and dance? I mean, all those kinds of things. It's like, and dynamic from song to song. I mean, those things always, I love it when I go to a show and you can really tell that they've thought about that. It's not just one song after another. It's more of a, an experience from beginning to end. And we don't accomplish that very much, but I like to think about it that way,
Well, no, it makes sense, because you want your audience to ebb and flow with you. If it's all one static thing,
and to engage them, to engage them somehow. So
yeah. And like, if it's all one static thing, I think they tune out,
Definitely. Definitely. Not only tune out, but walk out.
Yeah, that too. So when it came time for you, when you did the solo record, the first one, like, were you writing songs for yourself through this process, or what did that look like?
You're talking about the Big House of Time?
Yeah, the Big House of Time.
So the sort of story behind that is, after I left the Q's in 87, I got married to this man named Rob Gow, and he was a musician and guitar player and songwriter. And he also had studio skills. Like, he knew how to engineer and that kind of thing. So I think that DB Records, who was the guy in Atlanta who put it out, he has this really great record store in Atlanta called Wax and Facts, and he had his own label. And he put out the B-52's first single, and so in Pylon, he put all those 80s bands, all their first stuff out, and it was, very popular label. But so when I quit the Q's, I think I don't know if he approached us, I have no memory, but so I think what happened was Rob, that we talked to Danny about doing a record, so it was going to be under my name, but it was mostly songs that Rob wrote and also a few covers, and but my interpretation of things, vocally, and so that's how that came about, and we recorded that with this guy went on to become a really famous, popular producer, Brendan O'Brien. But it was before he left Atlanta. It was like, I think my album might have been one of the last things he did in Atlanta. And so it was Brendan and Rob pretty much, produced the whole thing. And so that came out, and it did, it was okay. It got some good reviews, and, we played a few shows, but I think we had a child that year and things were kind of crazy. We played a few shows in the Southeast. Oh, and then we went up and played a show at Mountain Stage. I don't know. Do you ever hear that show? It's really great. It's in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's not in Charlottesville. It's in Charleston, West Virginia. But anyway, so we did that, and it was really fun. But so then we were like, okay, let's record another record. And so Danny, said, let's record another record. And we went into the studio. And at this point, Brendan had left town, I think, and Rob was just going to produce. He had started his own studio, and it was called The Snack and Shack. And and so we went there and recorded all of I Should Be Happy there. And he mixed it, I guess, and he produced it and mixed it and played on it and wrote most of the songs and all this stuff, and then it just never came out because DB ran out of money.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then
So
the music business comes back to bite. Oh, man. Like every time, it's like right when it's getting good. Come on, y'all.
I know, it's just like, oh, okay, that's right. This doesn't ever work. But so it sat for 30 years.
Yeah, and like I mean, that first record's really good, and like
Thanks.
it's in the second. This newest one is really good as well, and like I find it interesting. Like one like. With everything going on in life, it would make, at that point with that first record, it makes sense why, it wasn't like a big tour or anything around it. But like when recording the second one and sitting on it for a while, was it, and it was just to put it out, and that's like, like, years went past, and what was your thought on it? Was it just like, yeah, well, that was the thing I did, or?
Well, after what happened was, after that in the year of, I think we recorded that in 92, and we're still working on it in 93, and we were going through a divorce, and I was moving away from Atlanta and moving to Athens, and because I got a job over here, and then and my father died. I mean, it was just all these things happening, and it's so. And then the record didn't come out after all that, and I was just like, oh yeah. But I still really wanted it to come out, not least of which was because of the Terry Adams song on there.
Yeah,
I just love. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and I just loved that song. And I thought, can we just put that out? I mean, what can we do something? And so, so that was a pretty traumatic, tumultuous time, and I think. So what happened was, after Rob's studio closed, he gave me all the tapes from the I Should Be Happy sessions or whatever. And I guess what his thing was, do what you want to with it or whatever, he just needed to get it out of his space. But in the meantime, I moved to Athens and started just hanging out with a few musicians that I met here. And we started playing a little bit together. But not really. We played Attic maybe a couple times, but I really wanted to record these songs because I had written these songs and I wanted to go record them to get them down before it was all gone. And it was before Rob's studio closed. So we went back to Rob's studio and he recorded it, but he's not on it and he didn't write it, it was okay. We were on okay terms. And then, so I didn't realize that those songs were on those I Should Be Happy tapes, And so when this friend of mine, Clay Harper, who's this pizza magnate in Atlanta, he said, I think we should get those tapes digitized. And I was like, I don't know why, but sure, let's do it. And so we did it, and then those other songs were on there. And it was like, oh, well, I hadn't heard these in a while, and these resonate more with me than some of these really, dense instrumental songs and, things with heavy guitar on them and stuff. And so, I was really excited about hearing those, but then I thought, well, this is never going to come out. But my thing was I was going to get Pro Tools and I was going to remix it and I was going to, just put it out on my own or something like that. And I got a subscription or whatever to Pro Tools and I was just like, this is, I was going to do it, just like learning graphic design. I was going to learn the program and I was going to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, like you did it with that. It's a different spectrum here, the audio spectrum. Why not? There's got to be some crossover. Like,
right. Yeah. It's a Mac thing and I can figure that out. But I just, too much. I was just so busy with, raising my daughter and doing all these things and working full time. And, so it just didn't happen. And then Danny, who had originally, financed the thing and couldn't put it out, came into some money from some, family thing. And he said, listen, do you want to put that record out? And I was just like, what? And I said, well, sure. And so it was just like, this was just a couple years ago. And but I really want to remix the whole thing. I don't want to put it out the way it is. And I may want to shoot some songs off of it, just because to make it more of my record and, so that's what happened. I mean, he paid to put me in the studio here in Athens with this really great producer, musician, human named David Barbie, who's, he was in that band Sugar and he's had Mercyland. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but he's also produced a bunch of stuff and and he loves baseball, but he's just he's the greatest guy. And so we did it and he was so supportive, and we went into each song and just took out a lot, not all of them, but took out a lot of just the density of it and made it, just a less rocking thing. So that was just greatest. It was such a great experience because I'd never been involved in that aspect of anything, mixing or anything like that. I just go in and do my part and then I leave, I don't know what's going to happen. So that was really great.
So with the batch of tunes that initially was recorded, like the first session with all these tunes, what has stuck from that first session? Like that.
What songs are still on there?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go get I have to get one.
Okay.
I have to get a reference. And of course, the difference is that not all the songs are on the LP that are on the CD because we didn't have enough room. So
the
most complete thing is the CD. And let's see what was on the original. I Should Be Happy, Bottle of Sleep, You Planned It, Gone, Speedboat's Wake, First Light, Amazing, and Who Cares? So that means that Give In, and Dark Room, 1, 2, Torn Apart, 3, Music Weaver, 4, Wind Cries Mary, 5. And that was just recorded at a practice or something. We recorded that in our practice room and we practiced in Rob's studio and that was just during a practice. I don't even know how that came about, but I loved it. And when I found that on tape, I was just like, oh, we got to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so in that the second batch of tunes, is that the one where, so with the new cast of musician friends you met, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and one of which being Billy Conway, right?
Oh yeah. Well, Billy actually went and put a drum part on First Light. First Light was one of the songs that was on the original, but we took the drums off of that and put his drum part on.
Okay.
But yeah, Billy, his wife and I have been really good friends since the 80s. She was in a band called Face to Face, and we met in Boston and just became really good friends and have remained so.
That's awesome. That's
So I was up at their place in New Hampshire, and Billy and I had taken my little hard drive with my songs on it up there, and um, I said, Laurie, can you help me? I mean, I want to remix this. I want to do this. So we put it on there. They had a little home studio, and we put it on. She goes, well, first of all, and she just takes the whatever those are called. What are those things?
faders. Yeah.
Fader. Yes. She takes the fader and goes, first, we're going to just bring that vocal up. And I was like, oh, and I mean, I literally started crying. I was like, wow, you can do that. It was just like, okay, this might be fun. So we didn't get much done, but we were listening to the songs, and Billy was in the other room, and he goes, would you mind if I put a drum part on that song? I was like, no, really. I was just like, yeah, no, I do not mind. That would be fantastic.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. No.
Was it my band? We just did a tune with Dana from Morphine, and
Oh
yeah. So I'm a huge fan of that band, and that's so
yeah,
cool that you got that you know them. I mean,
yeah.
sadly Billy's no longer with us, but
And that was just 6 months before he died that he put that drum there.
Man.
It was like crazy.
Yeah.
But he was just
yeah. Oh man, that's so okay. So when that's like when you get the tapes and you go, hey, that's your first time like really trying to.
Yeah, I had taken the hard drive and and taken it up there to Laurie, and so we actually added. I had one little bogus little keyboard violin part on "Carry Me." And that was really fun. I said, well, there's this one part missing and I really want to play it. And she goes, okay, we'll try this. And I was like, God, I mean, it made me think, man, if I had just been doing this 30 years ago, it might have really been fun. Like actually participating more than
you could still, there's still time now. There's going to be a follow-up. Come on.
We shall see.
It's not, no, that's awesome though. Okay, so after because that is kind of a revelation, just to be like, oh, I can do this too. You know what I mean? Like for anyone that's like, when you, I guess in a band that's like swimming pool pews, like that's already established where like the writing machine's there, everyone just kind of adds their little spice to it and you move on. And when it like a project like that takes off and explodes into like a huge like we're playing with Lou Reed, you're touring, you know what I mean? Like I get where you might be like, I'm just gonna do the bit that I know I can do and I'm serving the part, like so like. But how cool is it that this whole world opens up? Like
it's been really nice, and I mean, I have to say that I don't, I have no idea what. I mean, I'm so grateful to everybody who helped make this happen, and made it come out, and it just blows my mind that it's really there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's because it's a good record.
Well,
they care, Come on, that's awesome.
That's what David kept saying. I was like, "Isn't it a good record?" I just have no concept, of that. I just never thought of things, and I mean, I know what I like, but I don't know that anybody else is going to like that.
That's something I scratch my head about too. The only way like you're gonna know is if you do your thing and you find out that. And that's most of the time, like that's what people catch on to, we like, as people, we like what other people are about, it's more, I feel, about relating to the person sometimes than it's more about the concept.
And that's the thing is that to me,
aesthetic. All right. I get it. I'm in it.
Yeah. This is the most personal thing I think I mean, this means more to me than anything else I've done. So I think that it also makes me much more, paranoid about it, but it's a really different situation.
Yeah, but of course, why wouldn't not? You know what I mean? Like to put yourself out there like that. But I think it's well worth it. So I wanted to ask a little bit about the track with Terry. How did that come about?
Do you want the whole?
Yeah, let's get the whole story.
How long you got? No. So when we were recording The Big House of Time. Now, wait a minute. Anyway, I'll try to cut it short. I have a friend named David Greenberger, and he is a musician, but he's also an artist in every sense of the word. And we had met in Boston. Well, actually, I think we met in Atlanta, but he lived in Boston. And somehow I forget how he met NRBQ or met Terry. But anyway, so they were friends. And he used to do a lot of album covers and stuff. He was a graphic designer also. He does everything. In fact, there's a new documentary coming out about him that just premiered at South by Southwest. It's really interesting. You should see it if you have a chance. But so I told him, I guess we were looking for songs for I Should Be Happy. And Speedboat's Wake, he wrote the lyrics to Speedboat's Wake. And then apparently the story about, because I asked him recently, I said, what's the story about? Who cares, And so he said that he and Terry had written that as a demo for someone, and they ended up not doing it. And so somehow he sent me the demo of what they had done. And I was just, the first time I heard it, I was just like, oh my God, I love this. I would like to do a whole album like this. But so he sent it, and then I was just like, yeah, but how are we going to get somebody to play that piano part? I mean, that piano part is all Terry. I mean, And he said, well, so somehow miraculously NRBQ was coming down to Atlanta to play, and somehow Terry agreed to go in the studio and do that while they were in Atlanta. So I picked him up at the airport, never met the guy. I was just like, just, hello, Mr. Adams. I was like, and I picked him up at the airport, and we drove out to the studio, which was sort of outside of Atlanta. And Rob was there there was a beautiful piano. So Rob was there in the studio, but there was also the guy that recorded. He's on there somewhere. And, so we kind of talked about the song, I guess, on the way out there, but we got in the studio, and he sat down at the piano, and of course it's blah, 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 and I sat down next to him, and I was just like, and we went through it a couple times, just sitting there. And, then I had to leave that room and go into a vocal room. And so we couldn't see each other, and we just recorded it. We recorded like 3 or 4 times, I think. And it's just a live version, just start to finish. So that was the one we chose. And then I just love it because at the end he's talking, and I really wanted that to be. So when David and I were working, and I said, I know he's saying something at the end here. See if you can hear that. And so we get it, and he goes, that had its moments, didn't it? And, it was just like, yes. And then I laugh about it. Or I go, yeah. And I just thought it just was so great. It was perfect. And I'm really glad we got that on there. So
I'm glad.
That's the story.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm glad you kept that little part at the end too. Like I love little bits like that. Like when you can actually break from the performance and be in the room a little bit.
Yeah, be humans. These are humans doing this. This is what they thought about it immediately after.
That's awesome. Well, and this is an incredible record. I really appreciate your time chatting with me today. As far as with this record, where can people get a copy of it? What's the next couple steps and plans with what you got going on?
Well, it's available. I'm so new at all this stuff that it's on Bandcamp, and you can order it there. And I'm the fulfillment person. So if you order one, I'll be putting that in a box and sending it to you. And then it's available, I think, to stream on Amazon and other one, Apple Music, and I think YouTube. But the thing is, you can't stream The Wind Cries Mary. I had to get the rights for that to be on the album and the CD, which was really cool, dealing with the whole Hendrix estate. They were great. And but they do not do rights for streaming because that's dealt with some other company or something. So I don't know. I hadn't figured out how to do that yet. But anyway, so the LP and the CD are both available, plus digital download on Bandcamp. And then as far as next steps, I actually have been working with these 2 guys in Athens who are great musicians who've been around here for a while. One of them's name is John Neff. He's like a string player. He plays pedal steel, dobro, lap steel, guitar, electric guitar. And Neil Golden plays keyboards and bass. He plays bass on the keyboards, but he also plays bass. So the three of us have been getting together and working up the whole album. But we're going to have Bob from the Pool Cues, I hope, is going to come play guitar, and then we'll have a drummer. And we've got one show lined up so far, which we was like, we have to have something to work toward here. But we're playing at this really small little cool little club in Athens on the 27th of April. So that's our first big happening.
Nice. First of many. Oh, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, with swimming pool cues or just, have you guys ever played Cleveland?
I feel like we must have.
With a tour. Yeah. And because
where would we have played? I mean, what kind of places?
The Agora sounds like something they probably would have had Lou Reed at.
Maybe so.
Okay.
I just really don't remember. We played so many places.
You also opened for Devo. Can you tell me?
We opened for Devo in Atlanta. That was in Atlanta, and that was when we were first starting, and that was when they were first starting. And I didn't really know much about them, and I think we were, I don't know if you've seen pictures from that era, but, we were this just naive little new wave. I mean, not intentionally, but, wore wacky clothes because I just, did that kind of stuff and had a bunch of tours on stage and all this kind of crazy stuff. And we had to play 2 sets before that. And I mean, when we came back for that set, it was like, oh, Devo.
Why 2 sets? That's wild.
I don't know.
They didn't have another opener, like the open.
I guess not.
Yeah, but all right.
But Mark Mothersbaugh and I, sort of got to know each other, and we talked a bunch, and then we hung out together a little bit. And when I was working at that advertising agency, it was near the same place, near the hotel where they were staying. So I said, well, let's go over to the studio and make some art, because he's was a really great visual artist. So we did that, and that was really fun.
No way, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah, so that was to me it was a great gig, and of course I became a huge fan after that.
Yeah.
I thought they were just so ahead of their time about everything, just about the de-evolution of humanity and all that kind of stuff. And,
yeah, Devo was right, and they're still right.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you still have the things you guys made?
I think he took most of them, but I do have a couple things he sent me from the road that were cool, postcards, and he sent me.
He does that postcard thing.
Yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, let's see it.
He did this. I think it's in here. It's not. I'm doing. Oh yeah, here it is. He designed this set of playing cards, and it was called Music for Insomniacs, and it comes in this little box, and it's got a cassette. This was back in the days of cassettes, and then the deck of cards has got a picture of him on every card, like doing something. Let me show you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was a really cool gift he gave me.
Very cool. It's so cool. That's awesome. Very cool. Do you guys still keep in touch?
No, I try to, but he's into his own world. I think he got really sick, during COVID, and he almost died. And I got a current, way to get in touch with him from that, and he did respond, and so we communicated for a minute. But I was just glad that he was doing okay.
Yeah, no, that's intense. That's intense. But. And thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time.
Oh, no. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry I kind of ramble so much. But that's just...
it's perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. So...
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig of the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.